John Gill, Exposition of the entire Bible. We are in Revelation chapter 1. This is the last verse, verse 20. We're going to read the King James Version of it first, and then we're going to read John Gill's exposition of the Bible on it, and then we will finish the first chapter of Revelation. Revelation chapter 1, verse 20, brought to you by Discovering the Scriptures, being read by Dr. Peter John. Reading the verse first from the King James Bible, quote, "The mystery of the 7 stars which thou sawest in my right hand, and the 7 golden candlesticks. The 7 stars are the angels of the 7 churches, and the 7 candlesticks which thou sawest are the 7 churches." Unquote. John Gill quote, "The mystery of the 7 stars which thou sawest in my right hand." The sense is that John was to write the mystery of these stars, or the mystical sense of them. And the 7 golden candlesticks, the mystery of the mysterious sense of them also. For the words are in a continued connection with Psalms 119, and have respect to the following interpretation of them, and to the epistles in the following chapter, which are mystical and prophetical of the state of the churches in all succeeding ages. The 7 stars are the angels of the 7 churches. That is, the 7 stars which John saw in Christ's right hand represent the angels or pastors of the 7 churches of Asia, and in them all the pastors and ministers of the churches in the periods of time until Christ's second coming. Here it may be observed that the ministers of the gospel are not only compared to stars, for which see Gill on Revelation 1:16, but likewise to angels, which signified messengers, as ministers are sent forth by Christ with the message of the gospel to publish to the sons of men, and as the angels are Christ's ministering spirits, so are the preachers of the gospel, the ministers of Christ. They wait upon him and serve him in the ministry of the word and in the administration of ordinances, and there is some agreement between them in holiness, knowledge, zeal, diligence, and watchfulness in their work, as also they may be so called for the honor and esteem in which they are, both with Christ and his churches, and who, like the angels, rejoice at the conversion of sinners and the enlargement of the interest of Christ. And the 7 candlesticks which thou sawest are the 7 churches, represent the 7 churches of Asia, and in them are the churches of Christ in successive ages in the end of time. The reasons which these are signified by candlesticks, see Gill on Revelation chapter 1 verse 12, and that they are prophetic of the churches of Christ in the several periods of time until he comes again, will appear from the following considerations. The whole book is called a prophecy, and a revelation of things that are shortly to come to pass. And it would be very strange and very unsuitable to its title, should the first three chapters contained nothing prophetic in them. The characters of the divine person under which these 7 churches are saluted, as he which is and was and is to come, the Alpha and Omega, the first and the last, show that things written to them belong to the gospel church state from the beginning to the end of it. For what other reason can be given for such peculiar use of them? The very grand and illustrious appearance of Christ antedates of these epistles when compared with the appearance of God previous to the opening of the sealed book and the 7 seals of it, may introduce one to conclude that as the latter introduces the book prophecy in this revelation, so the former introduces the church prophecy. Nor does it seem that such a magnificent appearance is necessary to the bare setting of some letters of advice to some particular churches. Moreover, as there are some things in these epistles too common to all the churches and ministers to be restrained to some particular ones, such as Christ affording his presence among them, signified by his walking amongst the candlesticks, and his care of and respect unto the ministers of the gospel, expressed by holding 7 stars in his right hand. For can it be thought that Christ only granted his presence to 7 churches in Asia, or that the pastors of those churches were the only ones Christ holds in his right hand, so that there are others too, particular to certain periods, to belong to those churches, that Smyrna should have a crown of life, Pergamos, hidden manna, and a white stone, Thyatira, the morning star, and Philadelphia to be delivered from a temptation that would reach to all the world, and is not yet to come. for which no reason can be given to the literal sense of this epistles. And it is strange that only 7 churches should be sent to, and these only in Asia. Why not to the churches in Africa and Europe? And these churches also, all but Ephesians, very obscure ones, very obscure. Why not to the churches at Antioch, Corinth, Rome, etc.? And it's stranger still if the Epiphanis says that no church at Thyatira till after the writing of these letters. Nothing can account for all this but their being prophetic, there being something in the number, names, situation, and case of these churches, which are emblematical of the state of the church in successive periods of time, to which may be added the epiphania, an exclamatory sentence at the close of every epistle. He that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit saith unto the churches. Shows that each epistle to every church is not designed for that church only, but for the churches. And for what churches but those who are represented in that period of time, since they must be unsuitable to one another? And besides, this concluding sentence shows that what is contained in each epistle is something intrinsic, abstruse, and parabolical, it being only used when such thing is delivered. See Matthew 11:15. There is one observation more to be made, and which runs through all the epistles, and that is the names of the several churches and the titles which Christ assumes in writing to each, as well as the subject matter. All the epistles have respect to the several distinct periods of the church, all which will be more clearly appear in the following notes upon them. Unquote. End of John Gill, Revelation, chapter 1, verse 20. End of John Gill's exposition of the Bible, Revelation, chapter 1. Brought to you by Discovering the Scriptures, being read by Dr. Peter John.